information. Just hit continue. That's okay. Okay, so, but when you really start asking more questions, they'll either hang up, they'll stop, they'll pause, and then you got them. Okay, they're not the landlord, they're not the property manager. So just be really careful. You definitely want to check on the website, check who actually owns the property against who they're putting down as the contact, as a landlord. All right. Again, we talked about credit. Credit's very important, and that's up to you to decide with credit how you want to do that. If you want to have a particular credit score, you just have to stick to that. Okay, but definitely credit is very important, and again, it's up to you to see how you want to view that and use that in your monitoring. The $20, or we charge $20 for a credit check fee, and sometimes right off the bat we get people that complain about the $20. So if you're going to complain about the $20, I don't think we're the company for you. Okay, you hear those complaints right away, not good.
Does that go towards the rent?
The credit check fee? Yeah. Because that's our cost to
I understand.
Process the Yep. So the credit check fee is our cost to run the credit history and to process the application. So it's not a moneymaker, but it covers our cost. Security deposit, when people try to get assistance to get the security deposit, that makes me a little uneasy. Okay, if people don't have their security deposit handy and they're like, hold on, I'll get assistance for that security deposit. Okay, it's not necessarily 100% bad all the time, but sometimes you got to think about that and look at what's going on, why they don't have a security deposit. Okay, sometimes it is legit, but again, you should dig into that a little bit more. Constant calls. The person applied, and after a half hour, they're calling us. Do we have an answer? Do we have an answer? Do we have an answer? Okay, or they'll call 2 hours later, and then they'll call the next day, and so forth. Why is this person calling so much? Well, to me, it sounds like they're being a little desperate. Again, some people are stressed, but those constant calls usually means they have to be out. They want your place, and usually with the constant callers, the more digging we do on the application and the background check, the more problems we find. Okay, and it's kind of all comes together why they're constantly calling. All right, and some people still, I got the security deposit right now, here it is. They want to bypass the whole application process. And back in years ago, you probably could, right? Some of the landlords that are doing it a long time probably took money, right? Person seemed good, you're talking for 3 or 4 minutes, they have their security, they have their first month's rent. Cool. We won't really do an investigation, a background check. We would just rent it to them. But times have changed. So anytime someone waves money at me, to me, that's a red flag. It doesn't mean that everything, that they're successful and everything's good. It's a red flag. So I don't like that. And then last is the incomplete application. For our applications, we require 4 weeks of pay stubs. We require a photo ID and a proof of where they live. Okay, it could be an RG&E bill, cell phone bill, just proof about their home address. If it's not complete, that draws a red flag. We have applications on our website. You can go there, it's pretty clear, it's spelled it out. If there's questions, they can call or email in. But again, it's those constant calls, it's the incomplete application. And if you can't figure out how to do an application, there's probably going to be issues or problems down the road. Right? So when we talk about applicants and new tenants, have a good process for this. And if this isn't your strength, connect with somebody that can help you. Okay. Again, 1 or 2 bad tenants can really sink you. Are there any questions with red flags, applications, tenants? We pretty much do the same thing.
I get the SS card too, copy of that.
But
But you need that
for DSS?
Oh, no,
Social Security. Yeah, you should be getting your Social Security.
They can make up. I need a copy of the physical card. I need a copy.
Right, so if you want to do a full copy of the Social Security card, good idea for sure, 100%.
Driver's license.
Yeah, so the picture matches.
It would say no.
Right.
They have ADs.
Right.
Yeah. So, and a lot of this, you know, the people we have here in person been landlording for a very, very long time. So what happens? We learn, right? We get burned, something happens, we learn, we get stronger, we get tighter. And we're not being jerks.
We'll see that.
Yeah. But again, be consistent on that. Be very, very consistent on your policies and procedures. There's always those gray areas and what if, and I'm a sucker for that myself. allowed certain things, and my staff is like, see, you put them in there, see, and I'm dealing with a person I haven't paid 4 months. So I stopped all that, and I know for me, when I operate in a way that's not with our policy, I get a phone call from one of my staff members saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? They yell at me. I'm like, you're right. You know, so I got to stay within, and that's just the way it has to go. Okay. So it seems like the long backstories, they want to talk to me about that, and I don't have time for that. And really, it's not my place in the company to handle that. I have staff that handles all my applicants, and they handle the background checks. That's not me. So I have to stay in my lane. So make sure you stay in your lane, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, because I tend to say, yes, I'll help you. It's not helping. Okay, so very, very important on that.
So,
Yes, go ahead, Richie.
so Pat, on the credit score, credit report, do you consider, do you make a decision just based on a given score, be it 620, or whether it's debt that they have as a student, you know, they can take a student loan, and there's several of those that is causing the flow score versus all of this consumer or judgments or beliefs.
Yeah, Mary Jane, if you didn't hear, Mary Jane asked about a credit. The credit check is, do we go solely on a credit score? And if it's below, for example, 620, everybody's denied. Do we also look at student loan debt? There's some individuals that have student loan debt or some other commercial debt. And what happens then? What do we do then? So for us, we don't have a particular set score. Okay, and we look at the totality of the application, the background check, the references, because there are people with bad credit for certain reasons, and it's allowable if the rest of it checks out. Okay, so you have to be, but then again, there's others that just go on the credit score. If it's below a certain amount, everybody's out. Okay, so in that case, I would definitely say check with your legal, whoever you use for legal, just to make sure we're okay, so none of us get in trouble. I just don't like having a set score, because you have a lot of good people on the rebound doing well, but they have that mark on their record, whether it's student loans or an old car loan that was repoed, and that was 4 years ago, and everything's been good now. They're making good money. Their credit is getting better, but they have that glitch, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a bad tenant. You know, they will pay for sure. So that's why I don't have a set credit score. I just, again, look at the whole picture, the whole background. And that's why it's really important to do your reference checks as well.
Do you do the credit check, or do you just have them bring a credit report?
We do a credit check, but if they bring a recent credit report, then you have to accept that.
Right.
If he's 30 days.
Yeah, 30 days. If you do the credit check, so you have to have some kind of a certification and a very strict process, almost like a bank, right? Protect the data and the records.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very expensive. So I don't even do credit checks. I just do the monthly income, and I won't take more than 30% of their gross income for the rent.
Yeah, you know, in the credit checks, the demographics that we're in, that we operate out of, we have to do credit checks. You know, we have to. But like you said, Steve, you've been doing it a long time, and what are you doing? You haven't been burned, right? I mean, it's okay.
No, I've been burned, same as you. You know, they talk to you, and they go, well, okay, you know, like, oh, and then there it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's like, all right, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So I started out with someone who started nitpicking, and they hadn't even signed it. And they showed up to sign, and he's the boyfriend of an old customer of mine, so he's a real good tenant and everything, and now they want a bigger place. And they're all, they paid the first month's rent and the security deposit, and all they gotta do is sign. And they said, you know what? I don't think this is a good deal. I'm not gonna do it. And I pushed it back, and I gave him his money back. And she was crushed, and I felt really bad for her. But this is not the way to start out, like you said, right? So they didn't give me a part.
So you're saying 30%, so if they make $900, it's $300 for that.
So if the rent is $900, they gotta make more than $2,700 a month. Gross income.
Yeah.
Or they're not gonna qualify.
Right,
Or they need a cosign.
right, okay.
And then they don't really co-sign the contract. They do
That's gross.
And then we have rent.
Yes.
Gross. So I get doctors and PhDs doing their residencies. You know, they're making 60,000 a year, and he says, "Are you gonna check my credit?" No, should I? He goes, "Well, I owe over $500,000 in student loans, you know." I'm like, "Well, you're starting to work now. You're gonna start paying that back, right? We're only beginning, so I'm okay with it."
I use a company before. I use a company before.
Oh, to do the credit check?
Just do the rent. Oh, nice.
Oh, to fill the rent?
Because people come after me for discrimination.
Oh, we don't discriminate.
I don't discriminate.
Well, you know,
But
the whole
they-
thing, but Charlie, the whole thing is, well, Charlie, that's a good example. So here, Charlie's been a housing provider for over 40 years, and he farms that out, right? He farms out the background, the
I don't even
applications.
wanna know.
See what? Because that's not his strength, I'm sure, right? And he doesn't want, he'd rather spend his time doing other stuff on the rentals instead of doing the admin part. And you're right, there's some liability involved.
I'm better off with that.
Absolutely. And the cost that he shoves out for that, I'm sure it's worth it. Definitely worth it, right?
They come up with their loud music in the car. And I know right there. I don't want it.
To see the place, yeah.
Maybe it's a good song though.
You know,
But,
if I gotta hear my boop,
yeah,
I
sometimes
don't
you
want
get going with that.
You do that.
No, I do that, even 40 years.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, 17 houses. or whatever. And no, I don't necessarily live there, but I don't want my own, I get a lot of, I got some 30-year tenants, I've got a whole bunch of 20-something tenants. I don't need,
But they don't play loud music.
no,
No.
they're respectful of others, they don't inflict themselves.
Right, right. You gotta be respectful of your neighbors.
I have a lot of houses that are all.
So again, choosing your tenant, I'm sure a lot of you that are in the business have learned certain things. If you need clarification on stuff, reach out. And if it's not your strength, don't do it. Just don't do it.
There is a question in the chat from Bert asking, who can you farm out the credit check to?
You probably have to Google that.
Rent Perfect does it. And that's
So-
they're a national vendor for National REIA. So go to rentperfect.com.
Rentperfect.com.
Yep, rentperfect.com. They're a national vendor. If you rent for free, you get special pricing.
Rentperfect.com.
Otherwise, it's like $45 a check or something.
Right, and you can only charge 20 because that's the cap in the state. Versus 30.
So as, you know,
It's 20 per person. 20 per person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ours costs $19.99.
There you go.
so the key thing is information. They're a national vendor member. The information is on the website, so you can go to the website and you can see it there.
So, so moving on, we've raised rents across the board. And of course, with your Section 8 tenants, you have to give proper notice and so forth, and there's only timeframes you can raise rents. I did that, raising rents, not over market value, not trying to chase people out. As you know, our costs are going up, right? So we have, and so is everything going up, right? Gas, food, everything's going up. So we've had tenants that were in there for years and years, and great tenants paying. And we've had a few, we've sent out over 100 rent increases. And again, nothing terrible, but we've had a few people just go crazy. Like, just, I can't believe you're doing this. It's been 5 years. I haven't had. I said, well, we should have done this 4 years ago. You know, yearly, you should. So even on your good tenants, they understand economics. Like, nobody likes to pay an extra $20 or $25 a month or $40, $50 a month. But if it's warranted and justified, it is what it is, right? I mean, the reality is it's 2021. Costs are going up for everybody. So we've had a few people in 3-bedroom singles paying $850 a month. Where are you going to find a 3-bedroom single for $850 a month? Right, right. And so we raised it to 900. Oh my gosh! And we had one tenant call the city to call the net office because of the rent increase, and they told the net office that the basement's a dirt basement, and that the attic that they're not supposed to have access to because we locked it off and it's in the lease, but the attic is not insulated. So how would they know that? But those of you that own homes that are in the 1800s, you're going to find some dirt floors. So you as a housing provider are not expected to concrete the floor and put a brand new floor in if you get a complaint, okay? Dirt floor is a dirt floor. That's the way it was built. That's the way it is. So in this case, the city inspector called us up and the inspector never went out there. But we basically said, yes, this is the house built in 1880. It's got a dirt floor. it is what it is. And as far as the attic, yes, it is insulated, but as far as I know, there's no city code on your insulation in your attics and your floors where we have to upkeep. I've never been through a C of O where CO inspector removes some boards on the attic to say, hey, you don't have 36 inches of insulation there, whatever the code is. But I mean, people are, I really think it's the pandemic that's making people a little more crazy than others and coming up with these ideas. Again, we're not trying to argue, we're not trying to fight, we want to keep people. We do want to keep people. So the majority of our folks are great. It is what it is. And then if you get that special case where they cannot afford $50 a month, that's something you can talk about with that tenant. And maybe you can rescind it and lower it if it's justified. No problem with that. But raise your rents, okay? Because if rent control comes about, or if there's more laws about how and when you can increase rents, because there's already some on the books, to me, you want to be a step ahead and do it now. Okay, Steve?
So, but overall, I've only been able to get roughly 2% increases a year for the last 10 years. And I've learned everybody should get a rent increase, even if it's just 10 or 15 bucks a month. And then I have some long-term tenants too who are way behind on the market rate.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all below market rate, right? And they're great tenants, so you don't want to chase them out. And you know nobody's getting raises, but they keep raising our assessments 30 and 40% every 3 years, right?
Right.
And so it's a reality. I tell them that in a little letter, you know, when I hand out the renewals. So some of the longer term tenants who are way behind us, they're going to get a little more of an increase, so they might get a $35 increase, or a $40 increase. But I rarely haven't had any increases over $50. But if the apartment turns over, there's your opportunity to get closer to market rate. And so there's a balance between, because you're going to have some natural turnover and then we sign rate. So my turnover rate's gone way down. So either I'm doing something wrong or they like it. I don't know. So.
It is interesting. It is interesting about some of the phone calls you get and the kickback, and you get people complaining. So, and again, sometimes maybe it's time for them to go. And we've told people at the very end, if you want to look for another place, go ahead. And then let me know how that works out for you. And sometimes they'll call back and say, oh gosh, you're right. There's nothing out there. Or if there's something out there, they want $1,200 a month. And that's what singles are going for. The nicer singles, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month. So again, we don't want to get rid of people, but start raising your rents. Okay. Also, just to let you know, I did talk about investing out of state, and just a quick little blurb here. I called the National REIA in Jacksonville, Florida, and I called the REIA in Cleveland, Ohio. And because I've been doing a lot of research to go out of state just to see what's out there for bigger stuff, because in locally here, you can't find any 15, 20 unit, 30 unit complexes. And the ones that are a little bigger here seem to be overpriced. I think a lot of work, taxes are one thing. And so I'd say, hey, I got some time. So I went out of state, and in part doing my research, I called both Jacksonville and Cleveland. Let me tell you, they're not like open and friendly like we are. Like, it was just weird. I wrote this nice cutesy email saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm part of REIA, and just wondering if anyone on your team or in your group could give me some opinions and thoughts. I'm not gonna hold anyone down to it, but just, I'm new to the area. Yes, you can do your research online, I get it, but just some real information on some stuff. And I didn't get called back right away. I didn't get emailed back right away. I got the generic email, hey, so-and-so can help you. They pushed me off. And then people I spoke to just weren't the same. I don't know, Leon, you have thoughts on that?
Sure, I have more than one or two thoughts on it. First of all, you have to recognize one thing. You are from New York State. So what's that? So I mean, you've already set an impression just from that point. Okay, you're from New York State. You know, you can't do like me and say, yeah, I'm from Houston, Texas. You know, so you know they take on. You may think I'm kidding, but I'm partially kidding, because a lot of folks, they look at you and they're saying, gee, this is this big wheeler dealer from New York City, and they're gonna come out and they're gonna wanna do this and that, and so I think that was a part of it. And clearly, if you look at other areas, one of the first things they're gonna say is, well, now, what is this person gonna do? How are they gonna actually approach things? I'm really surprised to some extent, however, that, you know, you didn't get much more, you didn't get a better welcome, particularly if you went directly to FFREIA. I would expect that.
They hurt my feelings. Yeah.
I was here in this business for how long? You still have feelings?
Yeah, I mean,
What do you react?
he still has feelings, they're just a little numb now.
That's how it is.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're actually looking at doing, and I've been thinking through it for the last couple of years, and we'll pull the trigger sometime this year, and that is to actually provide a level of opportunity for people who are part of Freedom First to actually be engaged in a couple of areas outside of New York State. In areas where Joe McGuire and myself have a complete understanding of the area and how things operate, the laws that are in place in those areas. So we're looking at doing that, and we're gonna make it open to Freedom First members. And right now the thoughts are that we'll do something along the lines of doing some joint ventures. For example, Joe McGuire is one of the best people I know when it comes to paper and how you invest in paper. So he'll be doing some things in that area. Of course, I know Houston, Texas pretty well. Not only was I born and raised there, but I've bought millions of dollars worth of tax liens, tax sales oriented properties in Houston. And for a time period, roughly 2 years, I used to fly back there every month. So I know it like I know it like the back of my hand, better than I know Rochester. And so familiar with all the laws. Had a Section 8 house there for like 12 years, 13 years. Had one tenant for most of those time periods. So the key point here is, I could go on and on down that road, but the key point is to make opportunities available for people who are interested in investing outside of New York because of all of the issues associated with New York and the continuation of those issues, which make it really tough for people who want to be investors and landlords in New York State. So, and do it in a very open and transparent way. And, you know, we could do JV, we could do just help someone find a property in an area. So Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. For example, I was talking to a guy I know in Florida, and I was telling him about the fact that I had a person here in Rochester that I started evicting in October 2019, and that was, let's put it this way. He's gone now. Oh, but yeah, and as of last month, you know. So but you know, that's one of the difficulties. So we went through and I'm talking to the person. The person has like 116 units across the US. And so he said, well, I just evicted a guy in Florida. You know, guy didn't pay, he was gone in 12 days. Took me 12 days to evict him. You know, so the key point is there are opportunities outside of New York State, and those areas tend to be more than a little bit friendly when it comes to people who are landlords and people who are buying properties. And so, yeah, that's one of the things that we're going to be working on and kicking off. And so look forward to some more details associated with that.
I think Stacy has a question.
Yeah, hi guys. So Leon, what about Maryland, DC, Virginia area? Have you thought of doing any business down here? You know, I'm down here in Maryland, and my other point is to Pat's point. Yes, I will agree with you. Trying to interact with other FFREIA organizations in other states, I have had a very similar experience in not being well received or you know, people being friendly. I think I've said that many years ago when I first joined FFREIA up there in Rochester. But are there any plans on coming down here in the Virginia, Maryland, DC area? I myself have a couple of opportunities on that I would probably need a partner I just came across a 111 unit building. And I wouldn't be able to take that down on my own. So I get kind of opportunities like that all the time. That maybe doing a joint venture with someone would be ideal for me. So I'll go on mute and let you guys respond.
Yeah, let me just quickly respond to that. And certainly, we're looking at opportunities that would be positive for someone who's in New York. Maryland is one of those things that's a little bit closer than some of the other places we've talked about. So from that standpoint, it's a plus. And we would look at broadening this, assuming that we are successful in our first kickoffs to areas outside of the ones that we talked about. When I outlined some of the items, I actually on my own notes, I have Pat on the list because of the fact that he was doing some multi-family type things, and he was looking outside of New York. And did you do something in Ohio, Pat? Yeah. So and so that triggered. Oh, there's another person that I could look at putting in as a individual that would help us as we try to have folks that are part of the organization. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, and that I would say definitely bring to Leon's attention the numbers. Okay, the Ohio. Well, I was able to buy a condo in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I did research with again the landlord-tenant laws, the demographics, the area, and then there happens to be quite a bit of New Yorkers in Florida in the St. Pete area. So one person that I spoke to from Greece, you know, where I live, and so he was great in the real estate, sold a bunch here, was doing it down there. I'm just 20 years behind him. So that made, you know, I looked at the totality of the deal, but the deal was under a 10% return. However, since we closed on that property, the value has already went up $100,000 because it's a vacation condo beach thing, and all the others are selling, and literally it's insane. So I'm pretty happy about that, you know, getting in when we did get in. So, and now we have to do some rental down there, which we can do from here. We don't have to be down there. It's a whole different avenue compared to what we have in Rochester. So I'm really excited about that. The Cleveland property I'm getting is about a half hour from Cleveland, 17 unit. I've been approved. Again, it's just a couple more zeros, same stuff we've been doing here. Makes me a little nervous too, but it's really money coming in, money going out. And if it makes sense, do it. There's a couple more zeros, okay, whatever. The big thing was that when I talked about this township in Ohio and the landlord tenant, basically you have until the 5th to pay. If you don't pay by the 5th of the month, you get a 3-day notice. If you don't pay, you get a court date in 2 weeks. If you don't pay, you're out in 10 days. So it's about 30 days. And because it's a 30-day.
I was in Baltimore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I particularly, I love Maryland. I've had family in Maryland, and Virginia, Maryland area is good. For me, Florida, I have family 20 minutes from my condo in Florida. And then for Ohio, it's about 3 hours and 20-minute car ride. So for me anyways, for my comfort level, I'm gonna be managing that here remotely for now. But as we expand and get bigger, I'm open to more stuff, you know, out of state. But definitely, you know, the landlord tenant laws are huge, you know. So, but the thing what we have in Rochester is our returns are still better. I mean, if we have a good tenant, you're fine, because we're making well over 10% returns on a lot of our stuff. And when you go out of state, they don't see that. Yeah, between 6 and 10. So, and some of the taxes are high, not like ours, but they're certainly high. So, and some areas have different costs. Like, for example, water is really expensive elsewhere compared to Rochester. So, all right. So, but I'll be happy to talk to anyone later on that emails or what have you to discuss some out-of-state opportunities. I'm always looking for stuff like that. Now I'm just going to shoot to evictions. We actually have 2 warrants with lockout dates. Okay, so how did we get an eviction with a lockout date? We got a lockout date. It wasn't based on non-payment. It was based on the person missed court 3 times. So court was adjourned 3 times to give our tenant plenty of time to come in to talk to 211, talk to the assistant programs. But a few people that we have never showed up for 3 straight times. So the judge ordered a lockout, gave us a warrant, and we have a lockout date, and that's going to be a successful eviction. Not for payment issues. It's because the person was never showed up in court after 3 notices.
Yeah, was it rollover?
It was probably initially non-payment, but the fact is, since they never showed up to begin with, and then we kept rescheduling. The person was served.
They never got the opportunity to sign a declaration because they never showed up in court, so legally they never made it from the form.
Right.
Their own absence caused them to get an eviction.
Right. So they're being evicted for not showing up.
It's usually
Okay.
automatic, 3 times.
Well, that's the way. Yes. So we've been still filing evictions, and not that the people are going to get evicted for not payment, but we're doing evictions to light a fire under them, to get them going, to go to 211, to get assistance. Okay.
No.
So.
Well, the courts are open. They can, as soon as they walk in the door, legally advance the form, they sign the hardship declaration, and they're done until August, right? If they don't show up to court, the eviction proceeds as normal. They have to sign the declaration. They don't sign the declaration, they're not subject to protections.
If they do sign the declaration of their personal social security,
Then you're screwed until August.
But it does light a fire under them to go get help. The 211, there's assistance programs right downtown in court. I don't know if they're still set up there. Okay, they'll walk them right out of court to try to get some help. So.
but they don't have a hardship because they've always been on social service
Doesn't matter.
or social security. They just have to claim it.
They just have to sign it. There's no, we don't, even though it says under penalty of perjury on the form, nobody is going to actually enforce that.
Yeah. In other states, you can get questioned on that. You have to prove your hardship, not in New York. But other state, we're not Rochester. Other states, you have to prove that. So.
Or Andy, excuse me, let me interrupt for just 1 second. Yeah, you're right, because who's I forget the attorney. Jeff, Leon knows who he is, Jeff Watson. He and another guy in Ohio, they are landlord friendly, and they're evicting on that warrant, or not on the warrant, on the CDC ruling.
Right.
That is that the tenant has to be able to prove the hardship.
Correct.
And they're going in and just even questioning the hardship. The tenant can't even answer, and they're getting evictions in Ohio, eastern part of Ohio, all over. So yeah, it depends very much, as Pat had said, depends upon your jurisdiction on your state. And state, excuse me, but I just wanted to mention that, the CDC issue is handled entirely different in different states. And Ohio is quite friendly, landlord friendly. Sorry, housing provider friendly.
Get that right, Joe. And plus, Ohio can kind of switch to blue, red, I think at times, but for the particular jurisdiction, Ohio is so big, obviously it's got several major cities, but really do your research as far as where your locale is there to see how they are. And in this particular town, suburb of Cleveland, they're very, very housing provider friendly. But again, it provides more accountability on the tenants. And so when I met those tenants in this particular place, it was just a different vibe. It was a different atmosphere. You know, none of us have an issue when the tenant gives us a notice to say, hey, I'm going to be a week late. I'm going to be I don't think we're filing our evictions. Okay. That's all we want is communication. And I just got a different vibe there that, checking the rent rolls and checking his deposits, the seller, just a different ballgame. So I felt a lot more comfortable not being on site and managing it from Rochester, which I'm going to begin to do. And they have handy guys there to handle my stuff. I'm getting all the seller's information. So all that is falling in place right now. And if it gets too much, I'll just hire a management company. I have no problem with that. That's one thing I can do and kind of interview. I have no problem with that. So I have no problem turning it over. Again, where's my time best well spent? Trying to save $100 or looking for the next deal with somebody else to take care of it. So I have no problem with that. So, but with the evictions, yes, I was really surprised they're being evicted and tossed out for not showing up in court. So the whole process didn't even start, but the fact that they didn't show up 3 separate times, they're going to be tossed out. In this case, we have these 2 tenants that are going to be tossed out. Good riddance. Okay. They should have been a long time ago. So also the moratorium, New Jersey extended theirs until the end of the year, which you know what that means. And plus, and their reasoning was that if we didn't do it, school starts September 1st, and we can't displace people because of school. So New York and New Jersey are going to follow. So it's going to be December 31st. Ours is going to get extended to December 31st. Trust me, because our utilities here, RG&E has been extended to December 31st. RG&E cannot turn off. Okay. And they got extended from August to December 31st. So if utilities are extended, if New Jersey's been extended, New York's going to follow suit. And then what's going to happen December 31st, 2021? It's holiday time. It's winter time. So we're probably going to go into March of 2022. I don't mean to be doom and gloom. It's not official, just my feeling. Okay. So the assistance programs end at the end of December of this year. Remember, we're not part of the state program. All that stuff does not apply to us. So just keep this in mind. If you have to budget, if you got stuff going on, CLOs and so forth, August 28th, don't hold your breath. The moratorium is going to get extended. Okay. And it quite possibly in the March, April of next year. Just my feeling on that. All right. Any questions with that? What we talked about so far?
So I have a question. What about if they sign the declaration and they walk away from the court and they do nothing, they don't apply for help, they don't call 211?
Okay.
What happens?
So Mary Jane had a good point here. If she has somebody that she thinks is taking advantage of the system, okay, not truly affected, taking advantage of the system, they're not applying for help, not applying for assistance, this is going to lead into our small claims court. I had some people like that as well, and I had some people that were past tenants of mine that didn't pay, whether the property's been sold, it's gone, it's not ours anymore. I'm doing small claims court action. So if you're not getting any help on these evictions, everything's postponed, why not take them to small claims court? Because usually these folks that are not paying are still working, right? They're still working. So, right. So I just filed 5 cases in May, and you're only allowed to file 5 per month, per LLC, per individual, 5 per month. Okay. So I did file 5 last month. Of course, I'm going to file 5 this month. Unfortunately, they told me that they're backlogged. So it's going to take a few more months to be heard. But the small claims court was like $31.25 total, give or take a couple dollars. And the clerk at downtown was very, very helpful. Okay. What you have to do first is I would go down there and get a packet. And then when you do get a packet, you have to send a demand letter. And the city has a copy that you can use. You can fill in the blanks. You do not have to send that certified. We do. We just do, just to make sure they get it. And it's another copy that goes in the folder. We just do. So we send that out certified, which means you can send that out certified. It's a demand letter. You fill in the blanks. Small claims court has that. Once you do that, and the tenant does not pay you based on your demand, based on what you're alleging that's owed, if they don't pay you, the 10 days surpasses. At that point, then you can go down to small claims court and file your case. When you go down there, you need to have a copy of your lease. You need to, we always have a copy of the certified mail that the fact that it was delivered, the receipt, we have that in copy. We have a copy of our demand letter, and then you fill out the application. Now, for those of us that have unclaimed or we're claiming rent, for example, if rent has not been paid for the last 5 months, the amount of claim you put in your total amount of claim, your date of loss, you just put the first month. Don't put your date of loss as March through July. Okay, you'll have to cross that out like I did, and initials, so forth. So you could put that in the brief description of the claim from March to July, $800 a month. Now they owe $5,000, whatever it is. You can put that in your description, but your date of loss, just put the first date that you're claiming. So if you're starting in March through July, you want to put March 1st owed whatever, $4,000. Okay, and then explain that in your description. That's what I did wrong, and the clerk was very, very helpful. I was able to amend that and so forth. The application is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, you have to sign a few times, and the clerk downtown there is a notary. So you don't have to have this filled out prior, notarized. You can if you want. You got a question?
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got a tenant that we started eviction on in September 2020. Gave 30 days notice. We started the court eviction in December. And Burgess and Morelli, our attorney, advised me that I could not collect any rent from her. And so I haven't since then, since September. So we're there.
Well, when you do a small claims court action, you can't have an eviction action going at the same time. It's one or the other.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so don't have both going and see what gets there first. Okay, so have one or the other. As far as now, if you have a holdover tenant, then you don't want to claim, you don't want to get rents, because then I'll start over again. So if they're a holdover, like you told them to leave, they didn't leave,
Right.
and then they start paying you rent. But I would get more clarification with your attorney on that. I just know things change weekly downtown, and the attorneys are going to advise you based on what they know. I don't want to advise you on that, but just seek it from your attorneys, and they're pretty well known. They've but when you do a small claims court, these are for, like I said, I've been using them on people that I'm not even going to waste my time with eviction. I know the moratorium is going to be extended, so I'm hoping to get a small claims court prior to that. I know they work, so I know we can get a judgment. And even if they just were to leave, not pay me but leave, fine. For $31 on a court appearance, that's fine.
What are we paying for security deposit?
Whatever works. We've paid. If you want to make an agreement that they're happy, that you're happy, and take emotion out of it, and you want them to be very successful where they go, you have to contribute to that and help them go on their way to be successful and positive, whatever it takes. And as long as you take emotion out of there, and it doesn't matter what they owe.
I write up that we agree to terminate this.
Right.
And then, but give you your security deposit back, here's how much it is. And if they didn't want a check, they want cash. So, okay, let's go to my bank, it's right down the street. We go in, I sit down with the banker, and we have it notarized. We sign that little 8.5 by 11, and then I write the check. Can you cash this to this young man? Oh, yeah, and give him large, because it's easy to count. And she comes back and hands him the large, and we're walking out, and he's so relieved, we just did this deal, and there's no yelling and screaming or anything, he's got money in his pocket. Would you give me a recommendation to my next landlord, he says?
You know what you do? Smile, say, of course I will.
I just smiled and I said, I hope you learned something here, have a good life, goodbye, right?
I had one recently where they owed a bunch of rent. The house was being sold for a really good price. So of course the seller, who's our client, is like, I need them out, need them out. And this tenant's like, I know the laws better than you. I'm like, you do. You got time to review them, you don't work, what have you. And she was very knowledgeable in the laws. So we did a transaction that benefited both. And upon leaving, I said, hey, by the way, can you give us a Google review? She goes, I'll do that, I'll do that. Gallagher, you guys are the best. You work with me, you're the best. I said, thank you. I don't know, what are you gonna do? Right? I mean, it's too bad. But
Let me interject a little bit on that last one, because it's maybe a little bit different take than what you two guys outlined. So have a form provided by an attorney that you fill out when the person is basically going to be basically surrendering the property. So we filled it out. okay? There was a person that was standing right there that the individual knew, so I said, do you have your driver's license and stuff on you? Yeah. So, and the person basically was a witness, and so I got their signature, got their license and stuff. So wrote the person out a check and said, okay, you're gonna be out by the end of the month. Da, da, da. Person is still there now. Okay, so, it's one of those things where you really have to be very, very cautious, because things that look to be necessarily cut and dry are not. We're in this world where life is normally pretty simple, unless you start to have to deal with people, because everyone sort of takes a little bit different view and approach, and you don't know exactly what it is that they are looking at and trying to do. And so just be careful, because the person basically took advantage of the situation. This person that has told me the same comment that you had, Pat, and that is, I know the laws better than you do. I'm basically a lawyer. That's almost words verbatim, so.
Let me prelude what I told you about getting to the bank, and then the bank person is a notary to sign the agreement. We don't get there until the person is moved out. So I've met the person at the apartment, they've moved out, the apartment is in the condition that I gave it to them in. Okay, let's go to the bank, it's right down the street. You sit down with someone who's got a desk at the bank, because they're notaries. And then we just do the little transaction. It takes 10 minutes, and they get their cash. I got a check that proves I gave it to them, and a notarized agreement, and my apartment is back. And now I control the apartment again, and we hopefully get a better tenant the next time. Life goes on.
So just whatever agreement that you do, just make sure that you might want to run it by your attorney as well. I handwrite them up, because sometimes they're all a little different, and I'm very comfortable with that. I get ID, and when I take a picture of it, I have their ID there, so when they sign my form, they have their signature on their ID, and that matches. That's comfortable for me. It works fine. Haven't had to come back. Obviously, make sure the place is vacant. Okay. Make sure you change the locks so friends or relatives don't squat and move in there. So I have a bunch of Simply Safe alarms that I use for my vacant places. They've been working out really well. Make sure you change utilities over right away. Because I did have an incident several years ago where the person moved out and then tried to come back in and have a party. Actually had a cookout with friends and family all come into the house with trays of food. And I got a phone call. It was the weirdest thing in the world. He vacated, moved out, signed my form. I had the ID, signed it up. I literally had to block the door, and we're playing cat and mouse, block the door. And I was going to get confrontation, physical. So the police showed up, and the police finally looked at my form to say, sir, you signed this form and you have no rights to the property. You signed off all your rights. You terminated all tenancy rights. I mean, he had like plates of food. Other people, all this stuff, we put to him. It's the weirdest thing. So the police had him, he left. But very weird, very weird. So just make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. All my other ones that we've made agreements that really benefited the tenants, everybody smiled, took the money, and ran. I pay them cash on the spot, have it signed, goodbye. I don't do the bank thing at all, but do what's best for you, what works for you. Okay, I'm not here to say it's wrong. So, but again, make sure you have a good team that could advise you on that you're covered, legally that you're covered. So lastly, with the small claim thing, when you send your 10-day out, again, no response, they're not going to pay you what they owe you. You go to court, they have a notary, and then the city's going to have you sign a certificate of authority. Again, that gets notarized, and then also there's an internal form there that as well. And again, you're going to have your copy of your demand. You're going to have a copy of your receipt that the mail's been received, certified. I do that. You don't have to have certified, but I do. And then obviously a copy of the lease, and then the paperwork the city has there downtown. They have a notary. You do it right in front of them. It takes about 20 minutes per application, and then you get it in. So I was there for over an hour for 5 applications, but once I got going with it and I fixed my errors that I made, it was pretty easy, way easier than eviction court. And these are for people that work, in my opinion, people that work, have money. And again, we just want to get them out of the place. So I have represented myself as an LLC, even though you're technically supposed to have an attorney if you're an LLC represents you. So I'm going to try it again and not bother my attorney on all these small claims issues. And if an arbitrator says, hey, you need your attorney here, hopefully they'll adjourn it. Hopefully it doesn't get dropped. And then I'll get my attorney. As far as what we should do, you should probably talk to your attorney on that one first, okay? But I have went without an attorney as an LLC and arbitrator let it go, all right? So is there any questions on the small claims? Hearings at all, court at all? To me, it's just another option, another avenue, much cheaper. You know, we'll see. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome, John. Okay, I think those are topics, the eviction, small claims court. We're going to talk about fire escapes in August. We've talked about some out-of-state stuff. Anything else anyone want to bring up here? Questions, concerns? I know recently I've had some mold cases come up, and we get letters about lawyers from out of the area that want to sue for mold and lead paints. That still comes up here and there. So make sure you're covered when your tenants do call for mold-like issues. Don't blow it off. Take care of it. Okay, definitely take care of it. Sometimes they're just allegations and trying to start trouble, but having good paperwork and pictures and so forth will protect you. Okay. Anything else?
Outside of building materials market stuff, right? So there's a little bit more information out there. I've been on the leadership calls with the National Association of Home Builders this week. 3 different meetings specifically talking about what it looks like for shortages and delays and construction and all that other fun stuff. Lumber is still an issue. It's going to remain an issue through probably Q1 of 2021 or 2022, if not longer. Price-wise, don't listen to the news media saying that, oh, the futures markets have dropped. The lumber producers that play in the futures market are few and far between, and they're not the lumber producers that are actually selling to Home Depot and Lowe's, 84 Lumber and those guys. The prices are going to stay inflated. You could very easily see $80 sheet OSB. The demand is not abating, and as long as money stays cheap, the demand will stay high. There's the chip shortage is now affecting appliance manufacturers, everything from air conditioners to refrigerators to stoves to washers and dryers, you name it. If there's a chip in it, it's impacting price, it's impacting lead time. Get your orders in ahead of time. If you have somebody who can hold product for you, I suggest you buy it now and sit on it if you need it. If they will not sit on it, then find a warehouse, rent some space, get a storage unit from Scott Spear, I don't know. Figure out where you can keep the stuff, because shortages, even though things are okay at the stores right now, they're hit and miss because everything is happening in batches. So right now you might be able to get all the appliances you want. 3 weeks from now, we don't know what that's going to look like. And then 3 weeks after that, you could get it again. But expect delays, book it into your budget. If you have a project you have booked for 3 months, expect it to take 4 to 5 because of labor, not being able to get enough guys on the job to actually do the work. And then your materials, when they do become available, you don't know if all of it's going to be there or some of it. Everybody's on allocation. Relationships matter. If you have a good relationship with your dealers and your product, they'll take care of you. If you're somebody who shops it out and you do the 3 bid for everything and you've got no loyalty to anybody, I'm going to tell you right now, you have screwed yourself. Your business practices for the last 10 years are going to bury you in this economy. It's just the way it is. They're going to, the guys that have loyalty and take care of their dealers and their suppliers are going to be the ones who get the product. If you're the low cost guy who's constantly bidding everything out and you're going bottom dollar, they're not going to give you squat because they're going to make their money and they're going to take care of the people who take care of them. That's relationships, that's business. And personally, that's the way I think it should always be. And I'm not heartbroken at all that I'm seeing these large construction companies that play this game getting their butts kicked. So.
And this, you'll see for those of you that are going to go to Benton Street on Saturday, I have the house sided, a third to a half sided. And to get more siding is going to be a minimum of 17 weeks.
They didn't do it at all.
No, contractors and shortages. So here I have the house partially sided. So we're going to get a different color siding, which means we have to color match what's on there. So we'll talk about that more on Saturday. But one of the realities of the shortages, and we want to get this house on the market to sell like ASAP, because it's just been a big money pit with COVID and over the winter and in the city playing games. And, you know, we need every type of update, upgrade possible. And so we'll cover all of that and, on Saturday at that house on Benton Street. But, all right, well, thank you, Amy, very much. Thank you, Leon. Steve, thanks for some good input. If there's no other questions at this point, I think we're good. All right, thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.